You wanted a World Series preview? We're going to give you the top 10 players on the bottom teams in each division in Major League Baseball for this one. Jack, Peter, Aram. World Series preview. Dodgers and Yankees were getting set for the first meeting between these two behemoths of organizations of franchises since 1981, if I'm not mistaken. This is going to be a doozy. This is what sorry to speak for everybody, what everybody wanted in New York and LA. It's Ohtani versus Judge versus Soto versus Mookie Betts. We're going to break it down by lineup, by rotation, by bullpen, by manager. Peter's got some X factors. We're going to make our picks. How many games? We're going to pick a World Series MVP as well. Today, Thursday, October 24th. And just like on April 16th, just like on July 12th, this show is brought to us by Peter.
BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks, and they got something new for the postseason, folks. We've been hyping it up. The BetMGM Sportsbook account holders who opt into the bullpen jackpot promotion and place a straight bet of at least $10 on their choice of any MLB player to hit a home run will win a share of a daily $50,000 BetMGM bullpen jackpot if the player they wagered on hits a home run that lands in an MLB team bullpen. Prizing is going to be paid out in bonus bets that expire in 7 days. This offer is available every day throughout the World Series, and customers, all they got to do, place a $10 or more wager on any MLB player, Yankees or Dodgers, to hit a home run. If that one lands in the bullpen on that game, they will win a share of a $50,000 daily prize. Let's say you bet on Ohtani and you bet on Aaron Judge. Both of them hit it into the bullpen. You will get a share of $50,000 for each one. Make sure to use code JustBaseball for that first bet offer up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your wager loses. To get started, gambling problem, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply. Aram, what did you use the bonus bets on?
I let the public vote.
And what did they say?
I gave 3 options. I gave Stephen Kwan walk, which I mentioned in our chat. That was my favorite pick.
Hit in the first AB.
Hit in the first AB. I gave Guardians money line as also an option, and this was a poll on Twitter. And then I put Dodgers World Series. They were all roughly even odds, or like minus 110. The winner was Guardians money line, just edging out Stephen Kwan and Dodgers World Series. So punted that bonus bet, unfortunately. Even though I love the Kwan one. I was going to go Kwan, and I'm like, I can't just sit here and wait for a guy to walk. It's going to drive me nuts. Sure enough, it would have been the easiest thing in the world. So lost the bonus bet, but I still made the money on the Soto home run, and I had some fun with it. And, it's probably on me for letting the public pick my bet, but it's okay. We're going to get another one.
You also could have lied to the public, too. You could have seen, Guardians money line 1. I took that. Psych. I took the one that I actually like.
Psych, faded you. Yankees money line cashed out.
I should have done that.
Isn't the whole thing fade the public? Like,
yes.
Peter, that's what we do, right?
Yes.
Not in the NFL now. The public's been crushing it, but that doesn't matter. This is the preview for Yankees Dodgers. Let's get into it.
I will say this could be a hell of a week for promotions because you have obviously the MGM bullpen promo, but I think Steal a Base, Steal a Taco is going to be back, right? Oof. Like that's one of my favorite things that we got going.
That's almost as good as the when Jake Berger went over to the Marlins and both
$5 burger night.
You called it to a T.
Yeah,
it's almost
that's
as good.
5
as
seasons of minor league baseball will get you. Calling promotions.
But I'm not a Taco Bell guy, but I can understand the promotion.
Man, no, that's one of the best promotions of the year. Okay, but let's get into the preview. And one very simple question: who has the momentum advantage in this one, the Yankees or the Dodgers? The Yankees just beat Cleveland in 5. The Dodgers dealt with a back-and-forth series with a whole bunch of blowouts. They took down the Mets in 6 in the NLCS. Who do you feel like, RMU first, is riding the hotter hand into the World Series?
I think it's close. Obviously, both teams are feeling quite good riding into the World Series. I would lean, I guess, Dodgers with the offensive onslaught, that we saw, and the fact that they scored the most runs in NLCS history in 6 games, I think is pretty remarkable. Freddie Freeman now has a few more days to get that ankle right, and they even rested him at the end of the series. So I think that's a huge wrinkle in this thing as well. I don't think there's a huge edge either way, but I think what also kind of puts the momentum argument over the top for me on the Dodgers side is you have Yoshinobu Yamamoto looking as good as he has looked since coming off the IL, and you have Walker Buehler coming off of his best outing, I think, of the year, given the circumstances and just the sharpness of his stuff. So you have the pitching staff looking as good as it can get, considering how decimated it is, and then you have the lineup kind of clicking on all cylinders. That for me gives the edge, I think, to the Dodgers in terms of momentum, but not enough for me to feel one way or another about the series. But I do think it's an interesting question.
Okay, Peter.
Yeah, I definitely see where Arm's coming from, because I think the Dodgers had a fork in the road after they beat the Padres, because that was a miniature World Series, because those two teams are as good as any teams in the playoffs. Like if the Yankees were facing the Padres in this World Series, none of us would be surprised, right? So to be down 2-1 in that series, come back and win, that's sometimes an emotional letdown in the next series. But they didn't have an emotional letdown. In game 1, they stamped it. 9-0 win. So the Dodgers have been rolling throughout. But the Yankees, I could say the same about them, right? I think through the playoffs so far, we're talking about how good the Dodgers offense has been. 781 OPS. They've been crushing the ball. They've scored the most runs in an NLCS, or really in a championship series, ever. The Yankees put up a 761 OPS in the playoffs against arguably better pitching, right? Because there's a reason that the Guardians and the Royals got here was on the backs really of their pitching. So I think the Yankees faced better pitching leading up. We're almost as good offensively. And Arm, to your point about the Dodgers pitching, I think I agree with you with the momentum. They ended really strong. The only thing is the starters put up a 6.08 ERA during the entirety of the playoffs. Yep. So you're talking about Buehler and Yamamoto having great starts to end. Couldn't agree with you more. Flaherty having his worst start, 8 earned. That certainly doesn't help either. But the thing is, when I look at both teams were supposed to be here. They both handled business. You could say, well, the Yankees had a little bit easier of a path. We could discuss that a little bit later. I really don't think there's any momentum on either side. Both sides are being hyped up. I guess you could almost say that the Yankees get a little bit of a jolt because I think the larger baseball media views them as the underdog. The betting lines view them as the underdog. So maybe that's a little bit of an edge for them, but not really.
Yeah.
I just think it's even in terms of momentum overall.
Yeah, I was a little torn because I was looking at, the Yankees. It's really all positive vibes. Like there was not, a sour note going into this World Series. With the Dodgers, I think Flaherty is the clear, like, sour note coming into the World Series. I did read a good piece by Kerry Osborne on Dodger Insider. Now, full transparency, I think it's just the official, like, blog affiliate of the LA Dodgers, like the LA Dodgers own Dodger Insider. So obviously it's going to have a positive spin, but it was a sit down with Flaherty after what he did as a person after that game 5 against New York. And he said he felt like he was 15 years old again, sitting with family and friends and just kind of like recalibrating. And he watched the start back. He was like, a couple adjustments here and there, but it feels like he took a clean mental reset, which I would be encouraged by. Ara made the point of Yamamoto looking as good as he had in the postseason and Buehler looking as good as he had in 2024. I think that's huge. So I'd say slight momentum lean to the Dodgers because I do feel like it was a tougher road. They came out the other side on a tougher road. I also feel like winning the bullpen game to send you to the World Series is an important piece of that. It's like, oh, we didn't have a starting pitcher, and that's what got us to the World Series. So I do lean Dodgers ever so slightly because of the offense and because of how the pitching calendar lined up for them in terms of getting out of the CS.
The Flaherty thing is an interesting wrinkle in it too, though, because he's been so good all year, and I think the mental side, I'm sure he feels like he's in a good spot to bounce right back, but I do wonder if he's just kind of running out of gas a little bit, right? This is a guy that's dealt with a lot of injuries, throughout the last few years, has had this resurgent year, and I think has thrown more innings than we've seen him throw in quite some time, and now including the postseason. It's been a lot. 75 pitches last time out. The average fastball velocity was down a tick from his last time out, which was down a tick from the time before that. So that is just something to monitor. And the fastball command just wasn't great. Obviously Flaherty gets the benefit of the doubt given how fantastic he's been all year long, and even through the early part of the postseason with a couple solid starts, especially that second one against the Mets. But I'm really interested to see how he bounces back, because that is a big component in this momentum side of things as well, because he's the guy that's been their most consistent arm that's actually available right now.
One more thing that I just want to add some color to the Yankees side of the starting pitching equation, because when I'm looking at the underlying numbers, expected ERA, FIP, xFIP, strikeout minus walk rate for the playoffs so far, among all of these starters, nobody touches Carlos Rodon. Carlos Rodon, a 2.12 FIP, 1.75 SIERA, 1.99 xFIP, dominant strikeout stuff. If we remember his last 3 starts, now, right, there's context to everything. He was facing the Guardians offense and he was facing the Royals offense versus some of these starters for the Dodgers facing the Mets and the Padres. So we have to, grain of salt a little bit with some of these numbers, but he objectively, by the numbers, has looked the best among all of these starters, which is huge for momentum. The Yankees knowing that they have a legit starter behind Garrett Cole, who has a 2.98 ERA in over 120 innings in his career in the playoffs. And this playoff run, he's got a 3.31 ERA. So the Yankees have 2 legit starters, and even Clark Schmidt giving the Yankees confidence in a Game 3 start against a Buehler has to make them feel good too. That's, again, why I keep coming back to the same point. I don't see any momentum on one side. If we're talking about the Dodgers gaining in the rotation, so did the Yankees, right?
Yeah.
That's why this is such an incredible series, because it's really about the matchups, in my opinion.
So I'm willing to say wash.
Yeah, I think it is kind of a wash.
Okay. Peter, where are you? Advantage Yankees or advantage or no advantage?
No, I think it's a complete wash. I think both teams are coming in here feeling good. They all got all the stars, and it's just who's going to win. I don't think there is some massive edge on the momentum side.
Gotcha. So how about lineups? I'll run down the Yankees lineup and then run down the Dodger lineup, and obviously we can get into the minutia of all that. But catching tandem for the Yankees, Austin Wells and Jose Trevino. The infield for the New York Yankees, you got Rizzo, you have Gleyber Torres, you have Jazz Chisholm, Anthony Volpe, John Birdie is kind of roving. Outfield, Judge, Soto, Verdugo. You have Jason Dominguez, Trent Grisham that you can plug in there. Giancarlo Stanton is the DH. We know that. The Dodgers, their catcher, Will Smith, the infield, Freddie Freeman on that bum ankle. Obviously, they went with Muncy sometimes. They had Kike Hernandez plug in as well. You have Gavin Lux at second. Tommy Edman has been playing a damn good shortstop. And then Muncy as well. The outfield, Kike Hernandez, Teoscar Hernandez, Mookie Betts. Of course, Shohei Ohtani is your designated hitter. Andy Pages is going to fill, against possibly Rodon, that kind of thing. It feels pretty damn even because they are close to carbon copies of each other, where you have top end superstar talent and you have depth that has shown itself very well so far this postseason. Like, who's the counter to Tommy Edman? Well, it seems to be Gleyber Torres. It just feels like you can draw apples to apples everywhere in this lineup. Do you guys disagree, or is there an immediate lean?
Peter?
You want me to go ahead first? Yeah. So going into it, if we're looking at like full season statistics, for these teams, the Dodgers are slightly better, right? Slightly, right? Against righties, the Yankees are slightly better. Against lefties, Dodgers are much better. But really, right? And I wrote a bunch of different stats in our World Series betting preview, which should be coming out. We're recording on Wednesday. I'm planning to release it on Wednesday, so you'll be able to read through it potentially while you listen to this podcast. So all the numbers are laid out. Going into the playoffs, I think the Dodgers were the better lineup overall. So if you take away everything that's happened in the postseason so far, I give the Dodgers an edge.
Yeah.
Right? I think they were actually, the Diamondbacks were low-key the best offense in baseball this year. It's kind of a shame that they didn't make it. Number 2, Dodgers. Number 3, Yankees. So it's minimal. But going in, Dodgers. Now, I give no edge anywhere because of Giancarlo Stanton, who has proven in the playoffs so far, if you look at the numbers throughout every postseason hitter, he has been the best. 59% hard hit rate for Giancarlo Stanton is absurd. 220 WRC plus, hitting the piss out of the baseball. So putting a guy like Giancarlo Stanton with those type of numbers that rival Aaron Judge's regular season numbers into the lineup now, I think makes the offense a wash. Before that, I would take the Dodgers. Now with Giancarlo Stanton, I think it's relatively even.
So yeah, the Stanton wrinkle is absolutely massive, right? Because you're talking about one of the most prolific power hitters of the last 10, 20 years that we've had here, actually looking like how he's looked in his prime through this stretch, and it just feels like he's emptying the tank here and is feeling good. And I mean that's a completely different wrinkle in this when you're adding him behind, or just in the same lineup as a Soto and a Judge, especially with the fact that Judge hasn't even been performing. And like, I know people can talk about, oh, the playoffs, Judge has a pretty large sample now and hasn't been good. I still think it's a ticking time bomb until like there's going to be a point where Judge settles in and he's 200 WRC plus Aaron Judge. Like we haven't seen the Yankees lineup with that Judge, Soto, and this Stanton. Of course, it's kind of like hitting a parlay there of having all three. I think that the Soto, like he's always going to be good. You don't really have to worry about that. But Stanton and Judge surrounding Soto and playing at the best of their ability, like very possible, clearly.
Just to quickly interject, just to add a little bit of stats to what you were saying, Aaron Judge, 45% hard hit rate, Shohei Ohtani, 44% in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So Aaron Judge has been hitting the ball harder than Ohtani in the playoffs, just hasn't really seen the results yet so far.
There's just a lot more swing and miss, I think, at this point. And, he's just I think not really as in control of his ABs, whereas Ohtani like taking the walks and just pretty much getting on base what feels like every single time. But to that point, like there's a good chance that Judge can get rolling here. I still lean Dodgers because I look at the back end of this lineup here, especially with the Yankees. Like there's a lot of reliance on guys that, I either because of their youth or just maybe not really haven't been there before, I don't have as much confidence in. Like even a Jazz Chisholm, like I think he's been a great addition for them. I'm interested to see how he plays, on that big stage, in the World Series, considering he has been struggling a little bit in the playoffs. Anthony Volpe has actually been great in the playoffs, but I could see his bat going cold a little bit. Wells has been, I think the worst hitter in this series realistically, but they do at least have another option there. Verdugo, pretty brutal. And like, that's another guy that I don't really trust too much. So, Glaber's been great and I'm kind of buying into that, but also Anthony Rizzo, I know the number, like the WRC plus is high, but like he looks like a guy that's swinging with broken fingers and he looks like a guy that's just kind of playing uncomfortable at this point. And like an uncomfortable Freddie Freeman, I think is a heck of a lot better than an uncomfortable Anthony Rizzo, obviously. But I think what puts the Dodgers lineup over the top for me slightly is just what Tommy Edman is doing right now. And the fact that you have playoff Kike Hernandez to the same point as well, where it's like just tested and just true that he's going to perform. Like I find it very hard to poke a hole in this lineup at all, where I could see the back of that Yankees lineup getting cool at points where, I mean, with Kike Hernandez doing what he's doing, Tommy Edman clearly just clicking and feeling healthy and looking like the 5-WAR Tommy Edman that we've seen in the past. And then, Will Smith has been kind of their weakest link offensively outside of Gavin Lux. Will Smith can get going at any point. I feel like the only guy that I'm looking at and I'm like, I don't have a lot of faith in you doing much is Gavin Lux. And I feel like they've done a pretty good job of kind of avoiding and masking his limitations in the lineup.
A guy that we really haven't highlighted too much to this point that I think is a separator too. Will Smith was very cold and then he got going. Like Will Smith hit some monster tanks at the end of that CS. So I think his presence is important too. And we talk about, lineup depth. He's like somewhere in between the superstar talent and the depth. And I don't know if the Yankees have that. They have the three quote unquote superstars. I think Will Smith and Gleyber Torres are probably as close together as like you can find. Hey, who is the equivalent to Will Smith in that Yankee lineup? Is it Gleyber right now or is it somebody else?
And Muncy's dialed.
Muncy's dialed. So you have Will Smith and Muncy that are on the outside of the superstar echelon, but are probably above the depth echelon. And that, I think the middle class is important here when we're talking about World Series lineups.
I think that's fair. I also, Freddie Freeman says he's going to be 100% okay. And who are any of us to doubt a guy like Freddie Freeman?
100% might mean 75%, which is a lot better than what he was in the CS.
Yeah.
But again, that's what he's telling us because
he
limped off. And then in the playoffs so far, he has a 31 WRC plus. So hasn't been hitting very well, was limping at the end, and then tells us that 5 days off or 7 days off, whatever this little break is enough for him to get back to 100%. I can't buy that. So that's why, again, Like, you guys are giving a lot of credit to maybe a couple more bounce backs of the Dodgers. But again, we're just kind of discounting some of the Yankees' hot starts, like Gleyber Torres putting up a 141 WRC plus.
I don't think we were discounting Gleyber Torres. I just equated Gleyber Torres to Will Smith.
But Gleyber Torres has double the WRC plus that Will Smith does in the playoffs, 143 to 71. So that's why I'm just saying discounting a little bit, right? Nobody has a 220 WRC plus in the playoffs like Stanton. Nobody has a 203 WRC plus except Juan Soto. So the high end output is extreme, and Volpe at 147. So I could even say, well, Jazz was the best addition at this deadline by FWAR. Is he just going to continue to do absolutely nothing? The Yankee fan in me kind of thinks so. So I'm not really going to argue that
No,
point.
the Jazz hater in you kind of thinks so.
Some people may say that. Some people may be right.
Yeah. Are you willing to accept that you're a Jazz hater? And like, I don't really get it.
Oh, you get it.
I don't really get it.
I don't want to rehash it. I've hashed it out before. Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of his, but feel free, Jazz. Crush it in the playoffs. Make me a big fan. I'm way open to becoming a fan of his. But to give Rizzo credit, Arm, you're right. It doesn't look great, but he's a veteran. He's been here before. He's a champion. Couple games, and he's been playing well.
If we're doing that with him, we got to do that with Freddie Freeman.
182 WRC plus with broken fingers compared to 31 with a bad ankle. It's not even close.
It's 5 games, dude.
I'm just saying.
We're ripping 14 at bat WRC plus
again,
numbers.
I'm saying I'd rather have Freddie Freeman. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I think you guys are elevating some of the Dodgers bats while discounting some of the Yankees bats.
I don't think it's discounting the Yankee bats. I think what's happening is we're elevating a guy that is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer in Freddie Freeman.
As you should. I'm not going against that.
Anthony Rizzo had an 84 WRC plus in 92 games this year.
I'm just saying he looks good right now. He's been objectively hitting, and I'm supposed to expect that just goes right down to the toilet.
Well, you've been citing hard hit rate, and he has a 0% hard hit rate in the playoffs.
That is certainly something that I texted in our group chat. Did you see that text today? He has a 182 WRC plus with 0% hard hit rate, but he's getting it done, and the production has been better than Freddie. I'm not saying that again. Anthony Rizzo is not better than Freddie. I'm not saying that.
Right.
I'm saying I'm trying to combat what you guys have been saying, elevating guys who haven't shown it yet, based on the fact that they've done it before. Versus guys who are doing it right now and saying, well, they're just going to continue to slide, which I don't think is fully fair.
So real quick, the Rizzo WRC plus equates to 6 for 14 with 1 extra base hit.
Is that bad?
No, but I'm just saying 182 WRC plus sounds a lot better than 6 for 14 with 5 singles.
Yeah.
6 for 14. That's almost hitting 500.
But it's such a small sample, and we're talking about a guy who struggled all year long, and ran into 5 singles. That's great. Like Freddie Freeman had a phenomenal year.
And a double.
Yeah, don't forget about the double.
Don't forget that double.
Wait, now I'm Team Peter. Arm, what do you have now?
7 days is a good amount of time to get the ankle right. We'll see. I mean, it's obviously not going to be 100%, and Freddie's just lying outright to say that he's 100%, but I get it. Like, I would say the same thing too.
He's a warrior. He's a legend. He should feel like that.
But, I think odds are Freddie Freeman's going to have a better World Series statistically than Anthony Rizzo. I think that's more than likely. So where I look at Volpe and what Volpe's done, this guy's seeing the ball well now all of a sudden, right? And that's a huge wrinkle in this thing where we're talking about multi-hit games, just controlling his ABs well. All of a sudden, this guy looks like the good flashes of Volpe that we've seen. That's a huge aspect to this thing, because if Volpe is playing, to the ability that we know he can, I'm convinced that Gleyber is going to stay hot. But I need some more life in the back of that lineup. And I know that Jazz could get hot and do it. And that's another guy that I think, if he's hot, he can be a difference maker and match anybody in the middle class that we're talking about in the Dodgers situation here. But I'm just concerned about if Jazz is continuing to struggle, the back of this lineup could be Wells, who has looked mostly lost aside from one swing, Anthony Rizzo, who could very well look more like the guy that he looked like the entire season, and then you have Verdugo, who's just not very good. And like that's the back half of your lineup there. So like that's just my only concern, where I feel like it's a little bit easier to navigate the back half of the Dodgers lineup offensively. So like that's my concern is like I just think it could get really cold for hitters 6, 7, 8, 9 in the Yankees lineup. It could happen it's baseball. It could happen with the Dodgers too. But with Kike being the way that he is right now, with Edman being the way that he is right now, and Will Smith being like back of the lineup guy, like I have a little bit more confidence in that in the back of that lineup.
Yeah, it's more than fair. The only thing I would add is, right, if we're going off full season stuff for some of the guys who haven't performed, like Verdugo and Rizzo and, Jazz, I can understand that. But can we expect to bounce back for Austin Wells at all? Or is it just done?
I mean,
Right?
I don't think I don't
yeah.
think he'll be terrible.
Yeah, I think he'll be better, right? And I also do think, and I think it's important to note because everybody says that the Yankees have this very easy path. I think they had a very easy path for their pitching. I don't think they had a very easy path for their offense because we know that the Guardians bullpen was the best bullpen in baseball. Yeah. Tanner Bybee is still a very legit starting pitcher. And the way that the Guardians operate, the starters who are the weakness of the Guardians, they never really go long anyway. Yeah. So it's mostly the bullpen. Then the Royals got their starters.
Right.
Course.
To further your point, they saw 2 All-Stars in Reagans and Lugo, and they saw Waka, who was as good as anybody after the All-Star break, and they saw that bullpen. Like, they saw good pitching.
Yeah, versus the Mets, right? Not great starting pitching. Like Sean Manaea was a great story.
And Sevy was good.
Yeah, exactly. And then even in they did face some good pitching in the Padres series. Like the Dodgers 100% have an incredible offense. But when I looked back at the regular season numbers, seeing how close they were, then seeing that the playoff numbers were really not that different, combined with the Yankees still facing some good starting pitching with Freddie Freeman's ankle, combining Giancarlo Stanton's insane output, I did come to the conclusion that it's very close to a wash. But if you guys want to give a slight edge to the Dodgers here, I fully understand that and would co-sign it.
That's what I'm doing. I think that the top end talent, like the top 3 in each lineup, is very comparable. I would even say, maybe slight edge to the Yankees based on the way that they're hitting right now, Soto and Stanton. But I do think that 4 through 9 in that lineup, I go advantage Dodgers, and that's why I give them the slight edge.
I think that's totally fair.
Okay. Yeah. Are you advantage Yankees or advantage Dodgers?
Are you talking to
Peter?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I'll go with you guys. I'll give the slight advantage to the Dodgers. I just don't think it's very big. I think it's slight.
It's the little wins. Okay. We are going to get to the pitching and the managers in a moment. Before that, our first break. Let's talk rotation. We know what the Dodgers are doing. It is Flaherty game 1. It is Yamamoto game 2. It's Buehler game 3 and Bullpen game 4. That was put out by Alden Gonzalez. The official Dodger announcements are Flaherty and Yamamoto game 1 and 2. But I trust Alden to have his finger on the pulse of Dave Roberts and the way he's thinking. And you would assume Buehler, after that start in the CS, gets game 3, and then the bullpen thing is worked. So that goes game 4. Cole will go game 1. You assume Rodon game 2. Schmidt game 3, Heel game 4. Where does the advantage lie? Aram.
This is an interesting one because it really depends on which Jack Flaherty you're getting here.
Yes.
I also wanted to mention one more thing on the offensive side. Sorry, the bench side of it is kind of fascinating too, where like Andy Pages can be deployed in some spots to like crush lefties. I think the Dodgers trust their bench a little bit more, whereas it's like I think the only guy that's gotten starts off the bench with the Yankees has been Birdie twice here. So like I'm interested to see how they deploy Pages and even a Chris Taylor who's looked semi-competent over the last couple games, but I don't trust that. But anyway, to the pitching side.
Wait, hold on, Arm. Just putting Pages in against lefties, like against Rodon, that's huge. I mean, that's a big platoon bat, to your point. Huge. Yeah. I mean, the Yankees don't have that.
That's I wish that like they gave Dominguez enough run at the end of the year to maybe trust him, but clearly he's just there to be a Duke Ellis, but just stronger.
So like if he's there to be a Duke Ellis, why not just have Duke Ellis?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Get Dominguez, get some Dominguez some looks in this dugout. It's big to be in a World Series atmosphere.
It is big to be there.
I know it's kind of like a joke, but it is important.
Here's the thing.
It is true.
He doesn't have to be on the active roster to sit in the dugout. Like Kershaw is sitting in the dugout.
Why haven't they texted me? I mean, I don't have to be on the active roster, and I could just chill in the dugout.
You know who was in the dugout in the NLCS? Brett Beatty. You know
I
who
saw
was
that.
as close to the NLCS roster as Brett Beatty? Me. I mean, I don't know which way. So like, Jason Dominguez can still sit in the dugout. Like he can sit next to cool people in the dugout if he wants. He doesn't need to be on the active roster.
Yeah,
Duke Ellis can be in that spot.
but now he can get on first base and run a little bit when Stanton walks in the ninth inning. But
Sure, yeah, and then
on the pitching
oblique's gonna
side,
go again. Yeah,
I lean Yankees here. Just because I don't think anybody matches Cole. And just point blank, like Peter mentioned, sub-3 ERA in his career, in the postseason. What's the exact number, Peter, for Cole in the postseason?
298 and
Yeah,
120.
and
like that's a
up.
huge
That's
sample.
up from 290.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, he's
But-
cooked.
But
like
to be honest, like Cole is still phenomenal, and Aram, your point still stands, but it's not quite the same Garrett Cole, in my opinion, that it has been in years past.
That's
It's not
valid.
the same Garrett Cole that strikes out 32% of batters anymore.
That's fine.
25%, still very good, still the best in this postseason, but not as, I don't think he's a Zach Wheeler type pitcher.
No,
right now.
no, and that's fine though, because nobody is in this series, right? So I think from that perspective, I trust Cole more than anybody in this series on the mound, especially when we're talking about starters. And then I think what you said about Rodon is 100% valid. Like this has been a different Rodon. We made fun of him for kind of coming out a little too hot and celebrating a bit after the first inning and then running into some trouble. But what he did against the Guardians both times. I mean, the first time was outrageous, but even the next time out after they'd just seen him, looking solid again. I mean, this is the best I think Rodon has looked. I know it's a small stretch here of 10 2/3 innings, but I think it's as good as he's looked. And I think he can go if he's on. It's Jekyll and Hyde. It's so tough to know, but it's kind of the same thing with Yamamoto, right? Where it looks like he's building up here, but why can't we say the same thing about Rodon? So I think they match even in the number 2 spot, and then I mean Clark Schmidt, man, like he's been throwing the ball well, and Walker's coming off of a fantastic outing, and I trust Walker, in the World Series, no doubt about it. But Clark Schmidt had a really nice year when he was healthy, and since he's come back into the playoffs, I think he's proven that he can 5 and dive and give you a shot to win every single time. So I and then you add Heel to that. I know he hadn't thrown in a month, and that was his first time out, but you hope he can kind of shake off some rust there. Yep. I do lean towards the Yankees rotation wise, even though I do love the trend of where the Dodgers are at. I am a little worried about Flaherty hitting a wall. I know. I hope the World Series adrenaline will get him going again and things like that. But he's only human. And again, like Yamamoto looks great, but it's been a little bit of a roller coaster since he came off the IL with the shoulder issue. And then I trust Walker again, like I said, but this was just his best start, so we got to see him do it again.
I'm not a little worried about Flaherty. I'm worried concretely about Jack Flaherty. And I think, furthering your point, Arm, about Rodon, like Rodon on the upswing going into the World Series is the big deal breaker for me, where it's like it has to be the Yankees because they have 4. The Dodgers have 3. Like you could call a bullpen game the 4th starter. I'm not going to do that for the sake of the rotation conversation. The fact that they have 4, the fact that they have the best pitcher of the 7 that are starting pitchers in the World Series, and the fact that right now they may have the second best pitcher in Rodon, give me advantage Yankees. So Arm and I are both advantage Yankees. Now it's up to Peter to make the Dodger point. But
one stat real quick too. Sorry, Pete. Dating back to the regular end of the regular season, the last 10 starts for Carlos Rodon, a 3.13 ERA, a 31% strikeout rate, a 6% walk rate, and 54 2/3 innings. So yeah, that's not he's not going the longest here, but nobody in the playoffs does. If he gives you 5, maybe 6 strong innings, like you're going to be in a really good spot. And I think the Dodgers would be very thrilled with 5 or 6 strong innings from any of their guys. So, yeah, I think the trend of Rodon is very legitimate beyond just the 10 2/3 we saw against, the Guardians lineup.
Yeah. And I'm sure that people are listening and they hear, oh, Rodon dominated the Guardians. Like, good for him, right? That's not that tough of a matchup. Couldn't disagree more. Against lefties this year at home, where the Guardians offense has ticked up, right? They were one of the few teams with 50 wins at home. I think they might have been the only team with 50 wins at home this year. 119 WRC plus at home against lefties, tied for the 3rd best mark in baseball, just behind the D-backs and just behind the LA Dodgers. So again, seeing him again and still pitching like he did, big for the Yankees. But yeah, like during the postseason so far, the Yankees have a 3.89 rotation ERA compared to the Dodgers at 6.09.
Yeah.
Or 6.08, right? Flaherty's got a 7 ERA. Yamamoto's at 5.11. Buehler's at 6.00. There's just so many question marks in the Dodgers rotation. And I think what that also does is it then hurts the Dodgers bullpen. Now, Jack, we have to talk about the full Dodgers bullpen, Yankees bullpen as a unit, I'm sure. But before we even get there, before we just look at who has the best arms in the series, the Dodgers not getting length out of their starters because the Yankees are the #1 team in baseball against right-handed pitching, better than the Dodgers. They've been better than the Dodgers this playoffs against right-handed pitching. 853 OPS against righties, or excuse me, 805 OPS against righties, 751 for the Dodgers. So the Dodgers are going to be routinely throwing out righty starters that all have question marks against the best team in baseball against righties. So that bullpen
I love
is
that point.
great. That bullpen is awesome, but it's gonna get a ton of work, and it's a bullpen full of righties.
To build on that, and Aram, I'm sure you have something here as well. To build on that, this is the World Series preview. This is not the Game 1 of the World Series preview. Game 5, circle that. Because 3, 4, and 5 are on back-to-back-to-back days in New York. 4 is the bullpen game scheduled. So you have to come back 24 hours later and run Jack Flaherty out there for the second time this series. We'll see how Game 1 goes. And you're going to be turning to pretty much every reliever in Game 5 working a back-to-back.
Yep.
Just think about Game 5.
And as Peter said, like, there's only one lefty in that pen, right? It's Anthony Banda, and
maybe Vesia. We'll see.
And
Vesia might be back.
Vesia and Gratterall, I saw a quote trending in the right direction. I'll be shocked if they're not on the roster. I feel like they're gonna be there.
But Vesia was already there. Gratterall has not thrown yet this postseason.
I don't think so.
But the interesting thing, and Peter has this in the the preview that's linked in the episode description, but in the regular season, the Yankees were 73-45 against right-handed pitching, and 21-23 against left-handed pitching. And you know that they're not going to see a left-handed starter, and then the only lefty reliever that they'll see is maybe Vesia and Anthony Banda. So like that's pretty big, because even the bullpen game then, as Peter said, it's going to be very right-handed heavy. That is an important wrinkle in this thing for sure, because I think it would be a lot easier for the Dodgers to slow down the Yankees if they had a left-hander that they could go to. They don't. And I mean, the Yankees have to be excited about the fact that they might, 95% of their at-bats may come against righties in this series.
And think about it even more. The Yankees went 7-2 this postseason, 7-0 against righties, 0-2 against lefties.
Oh.
Lost the Matthew Boyd start, and they lost the Cole Reagan start.
Wow.
The
Dodgers, now, on the flip side, destroy lefties. 36-17 record against lefties. Look at all the lefties they faced in that Met series. Good luck, Sean Manaea, facing the Dodgers twice. That was just mean. Like, that's a mean thing to do to Sean Manaea, to get him to face the Dodgers twice. Yeah. They destroyed Jose Quintana. David Peterson tried his best. It wasn't great, right? But the Yankees only have Rodon. And Rodon's underlying metrics are the best of any pitcher in this series. So that Game 2 is going to be an awesome, awesome battle. Dodgers at home against the lefties, nobody better. Rodon, best lefty in the postseason, and pitching at his highest point. Yeah. So that back and forth is going to be fascinating. But again, Dodgers don't face that many lefties. And against righties, 62-47 this year. That's 15 games over 500, 13 games over 500. Yankees were 28 games over 500 against righties. Something to think about.
No doubt. Bullpens. I do have a Vesia update, but the bullpen rundown. Alex Vesia, I'll start with the Dodger one. Vesia did face hitters yesterday, and he is likely to be on the World Series roster. So that's big. And that's really important.
Fantastic, too. Which
he's been gross. I think it's
understated.
I think it's 3 innings, 1 hit, 4 Ks. Like that's it.
Just blows that fastball top of the zone. You can't touch it.
No, and Vesia was one of the best relievers in Major League Baseball this year.
Oh, yeah.
So that bullpen as it stands right now, Trinan, who I know Peter has a crush on, Kopech, Phillips, Daniel Hudson, Vesia, Bonda, Brazier, Edgardo Enriquez, Ben Kasparius, Brent Honeywell, who is, bridge man. That's a very deep bullpen with some top end talent, like even the depth. Like they have a guy that can give you 4 innings in a game that you already lost, which we saw. The Yankee bullpen: Luke Weaver, Clay Holmes, Tommy Kahnle, Jake Cousins, Tim Hill, Mark Leiter, Tim Mesa. I would just I'm going to say it right now, Dodger advantage in the bullpen, but they're going to be used way more. Like this feels like the most skewed aspect of the World Series. Like the Dodger bullpen, I think is running circles around the Yankee bullpen.
Arm, you want to go first?
Is Nestor going to be in there? Have they? Because he had a badass quote, by the way.
He should. I'm gonna be honest. I'd be very nervous about seeing him in the playoffs because of the lefty thing. I mean, the Dodgers, they don't give a shit about that motivational goal. Like, they're so good. They are so unbelievably good against lefties that Nestor coming off an injury. I love Nestor. I think
it's probably not worth the risk.
Not worth the risk. They should not pitch him.
Yeah, it's a flexor strain for those who may not know. And what I love about Nestor is he comes out and says, "We're aware of the risk. Like I'm well aware of the risk. I'll sit out for a year if it means I get a ring."
Yeah.
That's
Gross.
That is a pretty awesome quote though. Like I respect the hell out of that. But there's a certain point there. It's like, okay, well, if he comes in and gets bombed and then also has to sit out a year, like it's not a great scenario there. So yeah, I'm interested to see what they do there. But yeah, to Peter's point with the way that they hit lefties, I don't think that's really a needle mover in the assessment of the bullpen.
So what is a needle mover, I think, and the only edge the Yankees have in the bullpen is I prefer their bridge arm. I would take Marcus Stroman over Landon Knack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's number 8 on the depth chart for me.
Yeah. I'm just saying to get through.
And you could even make a case
the Yankees have in the bullpen.
Is it Knack or Brent Honeywell? Like I'm taking Stroman over both of them combined.
I mean, Honeywell's a beast too. Like Honeywell is a beast. I love Honeywell. So yeah, that's the reason I'm bringing it up. That's where the edge ends for the Yankees, even if that might not even be one. The Dodgers bullpen is so good. Now the Yankees do have better numbers during the regular season than the Dodgers bullpen, and I'm willing to just throw those out completely. Yeah, because Blake Trinan with the turbo sinker and the sweeper, he's the only bullpen arm in this series that is truly locked down. I love Luke Weaver. Yeah, love him to death. Clay Holmes in this new role, 7th inning, just give him a little bit of rest. He's dominant. Kahnle is fantastic. But the Dodgers have their versions of all of those guys and Blake Trinan. Blake Trinan is the only one in this series who I feel confident out anytime, anywhere, against any batter can throw up a 0. The Yankees don't have that, which I think is huge, right? What comes out of every World Series? That one huge weapon. Yeah. Blake Trinan is that weapon. The Yankees don't have one.
I will also say we're kind of getting there with Kopech too. I know it was
if we're putting Kopech in there, then Weaver should be.
Then Weaver has to be.
Yeah, then Weaver has to be. I
think it's just Trinan.
Probably just Trinan. I would say tier 1 is Trinan alone. Tier 2 is Kopech and Weaver, and
Phillips
Holmes
has to be in there.
Phillips. So those
Phillips,
4.
I think, might be better than Kopech. I don't know. They're both so good.
I mean, Kopech has faced how many hitters? 18. He's allowed 2 hits.
That's pretty damn good.
That's pretty good.
I mean, both of them. The Dodgers just have a better bullpen, which helps. They'll need it, right, in this series. Yeah. So, again, the entire pitching edge, it's tough. I mean,
it's because the Yankees have the advantage,
starters,
kind of a distinct advantage in the rotation.
Dodgers have a distinct
advantage in the bullpen.
But the Dodgers are going to use their bullpen more, so it's tough.
The lineups are very comparable, which we talked about. This is shaping up to be awesome.
Aram, where are you at on the bullpens?
I think I echo everything that you guys said. I think the huge X factor in this thing is what you're going to get from
amazing.
Yeah,
Enrique.
I don't know.
I mean Holmes, right? We know how talented he is, and he has an arsenal but you would know better than me in terms of you mentioned the rest thing. He seems to be a guy that needs that rest, Holmes?
No, it's not that he needs the rest. It was his one bad appearance was after appearing in every single game for the Yankees in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I give him a pass when he threw in 8 straight games, and then the 9th it wasn't great. Right? I'll
Yeah.
give him a pass there. But no, I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that like he needs rest. But in that scenario,
Because he is an arsenal, like in terms of being like a ground ball guy. I know you want to get some swing and miss too, but like he could go multiple innings, and
definitely.
that's an interesting wrinkle in it to try to hedge it. But regardless, I mean, with what Kopech has been able to do, and if you think he's in the same conversation as Luke Weaver, like Weaver's the Yankees guy. So I think that part of it makes it tough. But Canley's been awesome. 7 innings of scoreless ball so far, but I do get a little bit nervous of a guy that has to throw all changeups, and then Weaver's also a very changeup heavy guy. Like I do think that there's a specific type of preparation that you can have to be ready for these high leverage arms with the Yankees, where it's a lot of downward action stuff. Even Holmes is sinker slider, but it's working down at the bottom of the zone. So that's the interesting side of it. I think the Dodgers have more of that, like, okay, bases loaded jam. Let's bring in one of 3 guys that could come in and just blow it by you and get the swing and miss. My concern is that the Yankees don't have that swing and miss to get out of the jam, and that I think is huge in a 7-game series.
Phenomenal point, because the Yankees are good defensively, not great, right? There's just more balls in play in the World Series, and we know that anything can happen. That was something that Yankee fans got on Brian Cashman for at the deadline. We need to add some strikeout stuff in this bullpen. What does he do? Mark Leiter Jr. and Enyel De Los Santos. De Los Santos is not a Yankee, and Mark Leiter Jr., I'm praying he could get 1 out against this Dodgers offense. I mean, that's the thing about the bullpens when we're breaking it down. Are any of them going to get out of any of these lineups? Like, that's why I bring up Trinan. He's like the only one who I feel really good about a 0.
I feel really good about Weaver and Phillips and Kopech throwing
I feel
zeros
pretty
and
good.
Holmes.
I feel pretty good about them.
Okay. And you
Right?
feel really good about Trinan.
That's it.
That's kind of the
That
beauty
fair?
of this, though, right? Like, nobody's automatic. I kind of like that nobody's automatic. That creates for more fun.
I agree. I think it's just Trinan. Do you agree with that, Arm? Do you think anyone besides Trinan is automatic right now?
I mean, I would have said Kopech if he didn't have a rough last outing, and it's like, okay,
It was as an opener, like, kind of
Yeah.
weird.
I don't know if Kopech hasn't earned as good as he's been. I don't think he's earned the automatic label yet. If he comes out and shoves the first outing, I might reevaluate that. But I got to see this guy in the World Series, right? Like, and even through the playoffs, like, as dominant as he has been, I want to see him against this Yankees lineup where you're gonna have guys that can get to the top of those really lively fastballs. I mean, and things like that. So I try and I trust. Yeah, like, that's a guy that I have no worries with. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like, other than that, it becomes a little bit of an adventure. And I think that's what makes it fun. Though Evan Phillips could be close to that conversation when he's locked in, but he did have some bumps in the road during the regular season as well. But yeah, I honestly think Trinan's the only guy where, and of course now that we're saying that, he's gonna give up a bomb to blow a
he's
save.
going to be
No
the
doubt.
worst in the series somehow.
Yes.
No doubt.
But that is the one guy where, like, at least my heart rate doesn't spike if I'm a Dodgers fan as much as maybe anybody
Tim
else.
Hill, the lefty who the Dodgers should destroy, he like
Mhm.
weirdly is the best in the Yankees pen after this whole
He's
splits
gonna make
argument.
he's gonna make Mookie fall down. Like, remember the Bryce Terang swing, the sword from earlier this year? Like, that's gonna be
Yes.
Mookie Betts against Tim Hill.
Yeah.
Aram, who has the managerial advantage? Do you think there is one?
I think the way it is now, like, of course, like, there's going to be some in-game things that happen and it becomes a little bit of a chess match, but it's such a all hands on deck type of situation where you're scripting it out way in advance. And so it's almost like a front office conversation and like a overall conversation. But unfortunately, the Dodgers, we've talked about, like, they've come up short in a lot of postseasons. And, I think a lot of people will point towards decisions that are made and not made or whatever, but I think that's usually ends up being confirmation bias for a team that's underachieving.
Right.
And we've talked about it with Boone too, right? I think these have been flawed Yankees teams in the past where Boone wears the blame, and there's been times where maybe he could have done some things a little different, but I think too often we don't look at where the team actually came up short and just look at the manager and say, oh, well, he should have put this person in here or that person in there, maybe, but they might not have won if that happened either.
Who's
So,
gonna
like,
point to the bullpen better than the other guy? Do you have an answer?
yeah, I mean, I think it's easier for Dave Roberts to do his job just because I think the bullpen, there's more options. I think there's more clear cut scenarios too where I think, okay, well, this is our lights out guy in this spot. This is our guy in that spot. Whereas, I mean, the Yankees, like, he's going to have to throw some guys in uncomfortable spots, Aaron Boone, I think. Like, just realistically, there's going to be some arms that are going to need to be put in leverage, that maybe aren't your favorite options to go in those super high leverage spots. So I think Roberts has more toys to play with out of the bullpen. And other than that, I mean, aside from a pinch hitter here and there, again, Yankees aren't really using the bench that much. So I don't think there's much of an edge one way or another, aside from the fact that Roberts just has a little bit more to work with. So
Yeah.
I guess I would lean a little bit towards Roberts, but like there's not much that Boone has to do other than, hand in the lineup card. And I'm pretty sure they've got a clear cut idea of how this bullpen's going to go. Cause there's a pretty big drop off from their top bullpen arms to the rest. So like,
Yeah.
it's hard for me to really feel strongly one way or another. Garrett Cole is going to come out when Garrett Cole wants to come out.
Right.
So like there's not that many huge decisions I feel like that Boone's going to be making.
I think the Dodgers and the Yankees in the World Series at this point, managers are irrelevant.
I
Like
agree.
that's why I threw it your way. I was just like, I
Yeah, and
don't think it
I'm
matters.
probably too far the other way of like I probably downplay managers' impact too much. Like I think that the number one job of a manager is just to keep the clubhouse bought in
Vibe
during the regular
curation.
season
Yeah,
and
exactly.
manage, especially Yankees Dodgers manage egos. There's
And
nothing that you need to do there
I
here,
think Boone's better at that. I think Boone is great at that.
and that's why he's still there.
Yeah.
You would have been scapegoated a while ago, I think, but.
Right.
Yeah, I think the superstars on the field are going to decide this one, and everyone's going to point towards, oh, he shouldn't have pulled him or he shouldn't have done that. It'll be decided on the field, in my opinion.
Peter?
Yeah, I think I'll keep it simple. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I think both of these managers have flaws. I think both of these analytical departments, the people putting these lineups together, putting together the game plans, both these two teams spend more than any other team. It's just, again, momentum. A lot of these advantages, it's just like, it's the behemoths. It's just who's going to win.
Can you do me a favor and just go all the way in and just call them the analytics guys? Because like people love talking about the analytics guys. They're ruining the game, the analytics guys.
No, we call them the A team. The analytics guys, the A team.
The A team?
The A
No,
team.
I mean they're like the F team for the old guard, man. The analytics guys are killing this game.
Well,
It
and the
depends
thing
how
is,
much, yeah, you like analytics because you could assign any letter grade to and then put team afterwards. You could be an A team, you're a huge analytics guy. You could be a Z team, be like, get these fucking stupid numbers out of my face. Let's play ball. Kind of.
well, and the funny part is too, like you can put statistically speaking the best lineup that you think matches up perfectly against an arm, and if that arm executes and pitches better than you hit, like you lose. So
yeah.
like it's at the end of the day still up to the guys on the field. You can pinch hit for somebody in a certain spot, and if he doesn't come up big in that spot, who's to say that the guy that you pinch hit for was also going to get a hit there or not going to get a hit there? Like that's where the Monday morning quarterback thing really becomes prevalent in the playoffs because you're paying attention to every pitch so much more than you do in the regular season. And so then it's like, oh, well, I have the benefit of hindsight. I wouldn't have done that. And I'm sure we'll do it in the show during this series. There'll be a couple moments where we're like, whoa, I'm surprised he pulled him there. Might be valid.
I feel like I'm going to be pretty solid on that. I don't know if I'm going to react differently to any of these games at all.
Yeah, you can be very reasonable. You're not going to question Boone once.
This is my last reasonable podcast for the rest of the season, so everybody knows.
Thank you for the fair warning.
Is about where I'm betting, all the numbers, breaking down the matchups, and then as soon as first pitch, you lose me. I'm gone.
So that's why the rest of the shows through the end of the World Series are just Fink solo shows. So like, get ready for that.
None of us can actually do it.
Yeah, but I wanted to give us the opportunity to shit on the analytics guys. Okay. Peter's X Factors, and we'll make our picks in a moment. Before that, one final break. All right, Peter, what's going to decide the World Series?
So something that we haven't talked about yet is home field advantage important? Because the Dodgers will have home field advantage, and that's clearly, right, hypothetically an edge. They'll get 4 games at home. Here's why I don't think it's much of an advantage. The Dodgers have been so good at Dodger Stadium, but the Yankees were the only team in baseball with 50 wins or more on the road. I also said this earlier. Ticket prices are insane. Levels that I've just never seen before, right? You could compare them to Game 7 of the finals, the Super Bowl. I think these crowds are going to be weak. That's my hot take for the series. I don't
You're
think
going to have
it's
hedge fund guys just like golf clapping.
And think about it. And where are the hedge funds located? New York and LA. So it's even more so where I think that the roar from the Dodger fans typically in the crowd, the roar from the Yankee fans, I think it's going to be diminished a little bit.
So there's a term for that. It's called a wine and cheese crowd. Have you guys heard
Yeah.
that before?
No, I haven't heard that, but that's
So
funny.
it's a wine and cheese crowd. So like I heard it about Carolina basketball. There you go, Peter, cross-sport reference. But
There we go.
North Carolina basketball, like they have the Dean Dome, right? It's supposed to be one of the palaces of college basketball, but it's a wine and cheese crowd. Like it's one of those where like they don't really care. It's just a little bit more classier. There's no raucous environment there. I'm totally with you. These could be two home fields that are wine and cheese crowds.
And then when you factor in the Yankees are the best team on the road, but the Dodgers are the best team at home, and then the Yankees are very solid at home. Dodgers very.
They're all
solid on the road.
superstars,
Like,
and they're all superstars who are entirely unfazed, right? The Yankees bring a crowd everywhere they go. The Dodgers have now become like the Beatles of baseball with the stars that they have. Like they don't care where they're playing, who they're playing, how loud it is. How
the only guy that cares
intense
is Ben Kasparius. That's probably the only one.
He might not, honestly. He looks pretty good.
Yeah, he looks fine. He doesn't care. None of these guys care. And I don't think the crowd noise is going to be enough to really get on one side, knowing the Yankees are so good on the road, but then the Dodgers are so good. It's about the matchups. And that's why I keep getting into this. So I think the biggest X factor in the series in terms of a matchup is the Yankees versus right-handed pitching. No team in Major League Baseball had a better record against righties this season. Highest WRC plus at home against righties. Highest on the road. The only lefty they're going to face, Anthony Bonda and Alex Vesia, right? We assume Vesia is going to be on it, but they're bullpen arms. Perfect 7-0 against righties in the postseason. 0-2 against lefties. Dodgers 13 games over 500 against righties. Yankees 28 games over 500. Yankees 805 OPS against righties in the playoffs to just 656 OPS against lefties. Ooh. So the Yankees' tough games have come against lefties. They ain't facing any. They're just facing right-handed starters, all with question marks, and then a really good bullpen. So that'll be, right, if it's really close, right, if it's 4-4 in the 7th and the 8th, probably give the advantage to the Dodgers. But the Yankees are a better team against righties than the Dodgers are. More righties in the series.
They got to get on those starters. I agree, especially because we just talked about the bullpen edge. Like the Yankees have to get on those Dodgers starters.
So another X factor. I've said it again, but like the Dodgers are unbelievable against lefties. I mean, I'm reading through these numbers. They're just 36-17 against lefties. They beat up every single lefty they faced, except Sean Manaea the first time, where they still put up multiple runs and he only got 5 innings. I mean, 858 OPS against lefties in the playoffs, 751 OPS against righties. So the Yankees are going to be in their preferred split the entire time, while the Dodgers only get 2 games in their preferred split. I think they're huge X factors. You want me to keep going?
What else you got?
So a little bit of a repeat. We'll keep going. Blake Treinen just is an X factor in itself.
Yeah.
He's the only weapon in the bullpen among any team. Starting pitching mismatch, we already kind of broke that down. I also wrote down Giancarlo Stanton versus who? The best hitter in the series right now is Stanton, based on the numbers. Like, who can rival that? Is it a combination of guys in the back, right? Is it Muncy, Edman, and then they're able to compile enough to compete with a Giancarlo Stanton? Or do none of them show up in a series like this? Or maybe one, but it's not enough, right? Maybe Kike Hernandez keeps continuing this postseason run. He can't touch what Stanton's doing in the postseason, though. So that's what I wrote down. Who for the Dodgers can step up and be that huge bat outside of our normal superstars?
I think Freddie's ankle obviously is a huge aspect of it. And
that's my next one.
How much this week helps him. But, I think when I look at what a player can be and what he has been in this postseason in terms of, and that to me is an X factor, right? Who can swing the percentages and swing the advantage as much as possible. I think Jazz Chisholm's up there with anybody. And we talk about the back end of that lineup and my concerns with it. A locked in Jazz Chisholm is, especially against right-handed pitching, which they're not going to see any lefties, which is huge, or just very few. Like he can play at an all-star level. We've seen that. And he was doing that through stretches with the Yankees. And, the speed aspect of it too, right? Like he can be a game changer from a power and speed perspective. Like that's a guy that, if he's ascending to, the all-star level Jazz that we see through stretches, I mean, that's a total game changer. And in terms of outside of the big three that the Yankees have, who's another guy that can play at an all-star level? Like Glaber's playing at a really good level. I think Volpe playing at a good level, but like a locked-in Jazz Chisholm, I just think has more upside and impact potential between the speed and the power than anybody else in that lineup outside of the big three.
Yeah,
that's all I got for the X factors. The last one was just going to be Freddie Freeman.
Yeah,
and I think I think you guys are more bullish on him than I am, and I understand it. I mean, he's a freaking legend. He's the man. If like you don't make money doubting Freddie Freeman ever, but I just saw like a guy who wasn't hitting, was limping, was getting rested against lefties, and then I'm supposed to believe that 7 days later he's 100%. I just cannot buy that. But can I buy that Freddie Freeman will have a 100 WRC plus in the series?
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
But to expect superstar level, I think is just hoping. Now, if I'm wrong, it means the series is even sicker because that means the Dodgers just added Freddie Freeman back. But I just have no evidence to support that he's okay, right?
Yeah.
If he showed anything in his at-bats, if he had any sort of production, okay, maybe, but he didn't. And then now he's okay. I don't know.
A
But
week
again,
of massaging that ankle and that swelling nonstop. I'm just interested to see,
but
what that does.
There's possibility
Elevation,
of re-injuring?
Cryotherapy, hot and cold. Yeah,
because he was good.
Possibility of re-injuring during the playoffs. Though.
That's possible.
I mean, that's
but
game 3 rolls it again. I mean, then he could be out for the entire series.
But I mean, he was good in the beginning. I mean, he had a 2-hit game against the Padres, and then he had a 2-hit game against the Mets. And then when they started to kind of, I think, taper off the playing time for him, I think was probably because it was starting to aggravate him again. And that's why they said, oh, let's shut it down and get you a full week here. So I'm just interested to see if like, okay, did this time off get him back to feeling a little bit better? Because I do think 70% of Freddie Freeman is still, a well above average big league hitter, even at this stage. So that's the thing. Nobody really knows. We're just gonna have to wait and see. We're not the pro football doctor, like or anything like that. But I think this guy can just hit off one leg though and be pretty damn good. But to your point, Peter, he was 1 for 15 and over his last 3 games. So clearly something was starting to bother him again. And I think that's why they shut it down. So let's see how a week helps him, if at all. It will help, but how much, I think, is the big question. And I think the only person that knows that right now is Freddie Freeman and the trainers. And I'm sure they've been working overtime to get that ankle right.
Yep. Peter Apple, who wins how many games? Who's the World Series MVP?
I think the New York Yankees win this series in 7 games, and I think Juan Soto is the MVP. Now, for everybody listening, I haven't, right? You guys know I'm a Yankee fan. But when it comes to placing my money on things, I'm sure Jack and Arm can attest to this as well. I'm not biased in that sense.
You banned the Yankees.
I've banned the Yankees. I bet against them in the postseason, right? I took Garrett Cole under strikeouts. I took Carlos Rodon under strikeouts. I took Gavin Williams over strikeouts. I took Tanner Bybee over strikeouts. I played against the Yankees in specific spots a lot. But when I look at this series, I look at the Dodgers having a slightly better team, but on a matchup by matchup basis, right? Like Garrett Cole versus Jack Flaherty, who wins that game, going game by game. The way I cap baseball is I look at these splits. I look at these matchups. And with the Yankees having the offensive advantage every time against right-handed pitching, with more often than not the better starter, I think they're going to win more of those games. And with Rodon pitching as well as he has against the Dodgers' prolific offense against lefties, that's going to be a battle. But if Rodon can win one of those starts of his 2, the Yankees are going to win this series, in my opinion. So at plus 110, when I broke all of this down, I even looked at 5 other Fangraphs projection sites. All of them. Dodgers 51.8, 50.2. The average amount, Dodgers 51.8% chance to win this. Implied probability, minus 107 to the Yankees plus 107. The Dodgers are minus 130 favorites to win this series while the Yankees are plus 110. I think this is 50-50. I think the Dodgers, you get a slight edge because they're a little bit better. Then that edge goes right away when you figure out that the Yankees, matchup by matchup, have a slight edge there too. I think this should be minus 110 on both sides. Considering the Yankees are plus 110, 20-cent difference, I have to go with the Yankees. I put 2 units on it. And
Wow.
knows I sneakily put a lot more.
Yep.
Aram, who wins? How many games? Who's the MVP?
I almost got swayed with the right-handed, left-handed side of things because
Yeah.
that I think that is a really important aspect of this, where how good the Yankees have been against right-handed pitching,
Yeah.
and the fact that they're going to see predominantly right-handed pitching. I think that the starting pitching advantage helps them a lot too, but I think the Dodgers are going to be able to offset that with the bullpen advantage. I am worried about this Yankees bullpen, and that is the one thing I like. There was a point in this episode where I was leaning. I'm like, okay, I as I was an undecided voter coming into this,
Yeah.
I was leaning Yankees, especially after we're talking the starting pitching matchup and everything like that. But with the way that the bullpens can kind of, I think hedge that, or the bullpen can hedge that for the Dodgers, I lean towards the Dodgers, and it's going to be important for, that's where Dave Roberts is going to have to, pick his spots, put his guys in the right spots and things like that. But again, that's going to probably be mostly scripted out. I just think with the amount of arms that can come in and go into leverage, and I trust in leverage a little bit more. I think that's a big difference there. And then the slight edge lineup wise, I think is just kind of puts it over the top thing. I'm going to go Dodgers in 7. I think this is going to be an all-time classic. I think this is going to be an unreal series, and I don't feel confident about it whatsoever. I agree with Peter. I think it's a coin flip, but just the slight edges and the bullpen really being the big difference. And then the bullpen's been, kind of the story of the postseason. The reason why the Yankees are here is because they were able to get to that Guardians bullpen late, and I think just dominate them. And I think they might have won another way too, but that was clearly what it was. And I think a lot of teams that end up coming short, it was because the bullpen couldn't hold up their end of the bargain. And I'm worried that might happen here with the Yankees. So I go Dodgers in 7, and I'm going to say Freddie Freeman. No, I'm kidding. Who's the MVP? Who's the MVP? I'll go Mookie MVP. I just think he's going to impact the game in too many ways. So I'll go Mookie MVP, Dodgers in 7.
Oh, I forgot. I didn't even give my World Series MVP either.
Yeah,
I got
you
Soto.
did.
Yeah, Soto.
Oh, I did. Okay, good.
Yeah, damn it, Aram. What the do I have to change my MVP now? I had Dodgers in 7. Mookie is the MVP. I think Mookie clips 2 against Rodon, and I think that Mookie has the best chance against Luke Weaver's changeup. I worry about Ohtani against Luke Weaver's changeup. I could, for the sake of, Shohei being Shohei, just pick Shohei to be my World Series MVP, and that would be, kind of poetic. And
he's a massive favorite.
You know
what?
20 compared to Judge at plus 500. It's they're giving it to him already.
I'm comfortable changing my pick, Jack, because there's a couple others I like.
I like the matchup of Mookie against the Yankee pitchers more than I like the matchup of Muncy against him, more than I like the matchup of Ohtani against him. I think that Mookie could feast on a couple of these bullpen arms and on Rodon, and I think that he can get Schmidt, and I think that Mookie can get up and match a call. So I feel very confident in my Mookie MVP pick. You can keep it because you had it first.
No, I'm changing it.
Okay.
I'm changing it. I'm going to go
Edmund.
No, I was going to go Teoscar Hernandez.
I love
that's a good one.
Yes.
I'm going to go. I think Teoscar gets hot. Crushes changeups, by the way, too.
Yeah.
I'll go Teoscar for my MVP. He just gets, and if he gets hot, I think that's a difference, man, because he hasn't been that great in the postseason. That it might be a wrap if he gets hot.
Just one question for you guys. Kind of an audit of everything I was talking about. I am a Yankee fan. For everybody listening, when I broke it down through all the matchups and everything, and I placed my bet, do you think that it is not worth the value of all the listeners? Because I think it is important, because again, I am a Yankee fan. So was I looking at this from a biased lens, in your opinion?
No, not at plus odds. Not at plus odds. No way.
Yeah. You also just we just spent an hour and 10 minutes lining this shit out and why the Yankees might win the World Series. What do you mean? Oh yeah, I've got bias. That's the only reason why I took him.
I know.
Spent an hour and 10. If anybody comes away with this and it's oh, Yankee fan didn't look at any numbers.
I'm telling you, the internet is an interesting place. There will be plenty of people
There will be a
projection
comment of
and
saying,
just-
of course, Yankees fan says
and,
this.
and completely discount it. So
That's
I
fine.
just, and but again, if you guys thought so, let me know.
No, valid at plus odds in this World Series. It's a freaking coin flip. I'm just picking who I think is going to win. But yeah, it's a damn near coin flip.
I really,
No,
if the Yankees were minus 130 and the Dodgers were plus 110, I'd be on the Dodgers side.
Yep. Yeah.
No, I think that's incredibly biased, and you should put the fries in the bag.
I'm gonna get a lot of that if the Yankees lose.
Put the
I'm gonna
fries in
get
the
a lot of
bag,
that.
bro.
I'm gonna be do you want ice in your Diet Coke type of guy?
Yeah,
Like that's what
Is
I'm
that the
gonna
new
be if
one?
the Yankees lose.
Is that the new one? Have you
I
seen that
just
one
made it up
before?
right now.
Nice. Score one for creativity.
All right, I think that's it. That was the World Series preview. Also, I'm going to have some bonus playoff picks in our newsletter. And our newsletter is going to take you through the entire postseason, or excuse me, the World Series. We got tons of articles coming out. Make sure to sign up. Chinook Seedery is also doing a giveaway for us. We got bags of seed. We got Just Baseball merch in there. We also have a Dylan Cruz card that you can get as a part of the giveaway. So make sure sign up for the newsletter to get those bonus playoff picks, all of our articles, and to get in on this giveaway. So that is all in the episode description. Of course, if you want to go get some extra Just Baseball merch, nobody's going to stop you. Look at Jack McMullen wears Just Baseball merch. I'm rocking the polo too. Go get yours in the episode description. And if you've enjoyed all of this content, it's all free. All we ask, rate and review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, 5 stars. Written review, the best way to support the show without spending a dime, as well as hitting that big red subscribe button on YouTube, hitting the like button as well. For Jack McMullen, Aram Layton, I'm Peter Apple. We will see you tomorrow for a Game 1 preview. And with that, thank you, everybody.